A warm welcome to another thrilling Thursday right here on the AM show. My name is Benjamin Akako, and we always make it worth waking up for. Wherever you are, thank you for your company. Thank you for choosing us. Now, coming up this morning, of course, you know we're going to kickstart with the news review. We host Selom Branti, a policy analyst, as well as a vice president of Imani Africa. He'll be joining us for an open conversation on anything and everything in the papers and beyond. But when we get to the topical matters we're looking at today, it's going to be about enhancing Ghana's security. We take a look at what the Ghana Police Service should be focusing on this year, 2022, especially in the midst of some of what we've seen, the chaotic scenes in the Nima Mamobi area when youth clashed there. Some people have been apprehended, but what is the way forward? As we talk about this and many more security-related matters, our guests, Professor Kwesi Enning, Director Faculty and of Academic Affairs and Research. That is at the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center. He'll be joining us. We also have Dr. Adam Bona, a security analyst. Both of them will be joining us as we delve into security-related matters. But from security, here's another matter of national security concern: health. The COVID-19 pandemic is still on the loose. The Ghana Health Service has spoken about giving booster shots to pregnant women. The question is, initially we were told that pregnant women would be refrained or restricted in this sense. Why are they now eligible? What are the dynamics you should know? And even talking about a COVID mandate. Other countries are doing different things. As we interact with our guests, we'd like to find out what our unique approach should be in Ghana. Our guests, Dr. Yaobediako, he's an immunologist with BARCBIP at the University of Ghana. Dr. Fred Adumaku-Boateng is the Bono East Director of Health. We're going to be bringing you all of these, and of course, we're going to be counting on you to share your thoughts with us. We'd love to hear from you. On social media, the hashtag is AM Show, and we just might activate the phone lines as well. Stay with us from now till 9 o'clock when we wrap the show. Up next, we bring you the news. Stay.
Hello, good morning and welcome to the AM News with me, Mapisa Sibiri. In our first story, the Ghana Police Service has placed a 20,000 Ghana cedi bounty on leaders of the two groups involved in violent clashes at Nima on Tuesday afternoon. Director of Public Affairs, ACP Kwesi, stressed that the move is to incentivize the public to disclose all relevant information leading to the arrest and prosecution of all culprits. Touching on the menace of gangsterism in the country, ACP Kwesi said the police will not hesitate to clamp down on the excesses of all such groups in the country.
To our chief executives of these criminal gangs, we are doing everything possible to make sure that we pursue them, we get them, investigate them, and charge them for court. That is the leader of the Kumoji group. He is Ali Awudu. And the other one, no, excuse me, Bomb group, which is led by Ali Awudu. And the Kumoji group placed 20,000 on their head. Anybody or any member of the public who offers credible information that leads to their arrest will be given that amount. Let me state again, 20,000 cedis have been placed on their head. And therefore, it is our wish that members of the public who collaborate with police to enable us get them to face justice. And let me put on record that wherever we have any gang or group in this country, the police will deal with it. We will not allow it to grow. They should move away from it and engage in productive ventures. They should move away from the formation and growth of such gangs and unlawful structures.
National Democratic Congress executives in the Nadoli-Kaliu constituency of the Upper West region have described government's withdrawal of military security detail of the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagbin, as not only unreasonable but dishonest and unjustifiable. At a news conference at Sombo, they said the action can alter the promotion of the concept of separation of powers, which will invariably affect democratic governance. Correspondent Rafiq Salam reports.
Raised by the Constituency Communications Officer, Biekpeki Sylvester, they condemned the withdrawal of the military security detail by the government, stating that it has a tendency of rendering the promotion of the concept of separation of powers, which will invariably affect democratic governance.
From an allegation of him not being elected as a speaker, when all observers saw the elections, to allegations of bias against Mr. Speaker, the latest action by the government is, to say the least, very shameful. This action taken by the government has the tendency of rendering the promotion of the concept of separation of powers and will definitely affect democratic governance.
They found the reasons adduced by the government in the withdrawal of the military personnel attached to the Speaker of Parliament as not only unreasonable, but dishonest and unjustifiable as well.
The government, through the military high command, has caused to be withdrawn the military personnel component of the security detail assigned to Mr. Speaker, on grounds that the military attachment was done without following the proper procedure. We find this reason not only dishonest, but very shameful and unjustifiable. If there was any procedural flaw in the military attachment, it certainly was not on the part of Mr. Speaker.
They call on all well-meaning Ghanaians to speak up against the issue, for what is good for the goose is also good for the gander.
Hereby call on all well-meaning Ghanaians, the chiefs and people, especially of the 5 regions in the north in particular, to speak up and stand against such blatant discrimination. If you are withdrawing that of Mr. Speaker, we expect the government to be fair and do just that to others, Jean Mensa, Bosman Asare, and others who are now parading or moving with mini military barracks.
The local executives, however, have this message for the Speaker of Parliament.
We urge Speaker Bagbin never to succumb to any pressure by government to deny the people of Ghana his vision of an open, transparent, and accountable governance.
Reporting for the news, Rafiq Salam, Sombo.
Human rights group Challenging Heights is appealing to government to increase budgetary allocation to the anti-human trafficking units of the Ghana Police Service and the Gender, Children and Social Protection Ministry to equip social welfare and community development officers across the country. President of the organization, James Kofi Annan, is worried Ghana may not achieve 8.7 of the Sustainable Development Goals, which aims at the elimination of child trafficking and modern slavery in all its forms by 2030. He made the appeal during the launch of its 2021 reports, in which he disclosed about 153 children were rescued through their collaboration with the police.
President of the non-governmental organization says government must move to address the logistical and financial deficit in the area of child trafficking. James Kofi Annan, however, noted the COVID-19 pandemic has made rescue efforts even more challenging.
The COVID-19 pandemic has eroded the gains made in the sector and worsened the vulnerabilities of women and children, making it difficult to predict when communities could rebuild resilience against slavery. According to a joint ILO and UNICEF 2021 report, the number of children in child labor has risen to 160 million worldwide, an increase of 8.4 million children in the last 4 years, with millions more at risk due to the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. This is the first time in 2 decades the global community has witnessed increase in the number of children affected by child labor.
He told the media that the collaboration between the organization and the Anti-Trafficking Human Unit of the Ghana Police Service resulted in the rescuing of 153 Ghanaian children between the ages of 6 and 13 from modern slavery.
Challenging Heights is pleased to announce to you that it rescued a total of 153 children from forced work, human trafficking, and domestic servitude in our 2021 program year. Those freed are made up of 106 boys and 47 girls who were between the ages of 6 and 17. These children were mainly from 12 out of the 16 regions of Ghana. This brings to over 1,700 the total number of children Challenging Heights has rescued from slavery in the fishing communities in Ghana since its establishment. I am particularly worried that the global community might not achieve the 2030 targeted goal 8.7 of the Sustainable Development Goal on the elimination of child trafficking and modern slavery in all its forms.
Isaac Kwesi Damwate Kwei, a victim who was rescued from slavery on the Volta Lake, shared with us challenges they had to go through at the hands of their slave masters whilst working on the Volta Lake. According to him, he was sold into slavery to offset a 700 Ghana cedi debt they collected from one fisherman for his late father's funeral.
When
my father died, I had to take responsibility of my 8 siblings and his burial rites. I didn't have money, and the date for the burial was fast approaching, so I took a loan of 700 Ghana cedis, which covered the burial expenses. The loan shark requested for his money, but I wasn't able to pay. I didn't want my siblings to go through distress, and so I offered to work for the lender.
Traditionally, one will need charcoal to generate the necessary heat for roasting yam, plantain, maize and meat. However, these roasting devices are not insulated, resulting in the majority of the heat produced being wasted, prolonging the roasting time. What if there is a roaster that captures the majority of the heat and focuses it on the roasting food, making it cook faster? In addition, it is hygienic and takes up more food items. The Plantain Yam Corn Roaster, or PYC Roaster, developed by the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, has made this possible. On Tech Thursday, Kwesi Deborah speaks with the innovators.
So this is the PYC Roaster. I am Anani Awusa David Jr., the leader of a group.
My name is Frimpong Festus Andrews, a project group member responsible for the design of this roaster.
My name is Johnny Edem Abuado, the one who did the modeling of the device.
So this is the ashtray. The ashtray gathers the ash that comes from the burnt charcoal. This part is the storage chamber. So with the storage chamber, you can store whatever you want to store over there. Maybe the plantain and any other item that you normally use to roast. All right. And then this part is the charcoal chamber, which is insulated. All right, so with the charcoal chamber, you'll be able to add charcoal to the system anytime you want to increase the fuel. This part is the cook side. With this chamber, when the food gets cooked, you put it on this grill. And then you also have an ash tray over here, okay, which can help you dump your ash. And then we have this part, we have the air inlet. Okay, with this air inlet, you can regulate the flow of air. That's by either opening this one or by closing it. And this is the top or the grill part. So this is where you put your plantain, okay? And then for you to put the plantain, you always have to open this by using this nut. So you open it this way. Then you can put your plantains inside. Maybe a minimum of 10 and a maximum of 12 in each chamber. So if you have 12, then that will give you a maximum of 36 or a minimum of 30 plantains. All right, and this is the handle, okay? With this handle, okay, so with the handle, you can rotate the system at any time. That's between 30 seconds to 40 seconds. Okay, so that's how it works.
Because of the handling of the plantain, they also had hand bends. So we sought to reduce that by creating a way to reduce the way you touch the food, in that way promoting the hygiene of the food.
That's what the
My name is Professor Georgia Obeng. I am the supervisor of the project. Now, when we carefully studied those cooking devices, we realized that they were not designed. So even though the business is lucrative, the women don't actually gain or earn the amount of money they are supposed to earn because they experience what we call heat loss. So the source of the heat is actually from the charcoal. Now they are supposed to derive certain amount of energy, right? If the traditional roasting device is efficient, but they are not inefficient. They lose a lot of heat, and whilst the heat is being lost, their bodies also absorb some of them. So we did an interview, we did several interviews, we studied the traditional roasting device, and we decided that we are going to design a roaster for the women who roast around campus in Kumasi and all over the country.
Tournaments involving Ghana's Black Stars are peak periods for trading in the team's jerseys and other paraphernalia in the national colours, but many who stocked products in the wake of AFCON 2021 are in limbo. How will they offset the goods after the exit of the Stars in the tournament? A performance many describe as abysmal has caused disaffection for the team in the soccer-loving city of Kumasi. Nana Ojema has more in the following report.
The Central Business District of Kumasi is busy today as usual, but calmness is felt in God is Good Sportswear shop, where Emmanuel Ousu had hopes for a busy day for sales if the Black Stars had qualified for the next stage of the AFCON.
Since 2010, no, and I make us a bar 2014. I'm called Brazil now, Uncle Yohono, and if you want supporters, no.
Between 2010 and 2014, the business was very good. It was after the World Cup in Brazil that the sales dipped. Before the tournament, many were buying the jerseys and they were happy about it.
1,000 jerseys of the Black Stars were stocked for both wholesale and retail. As often anticipated, the market was expected to get busy with the progression of the team in the tournament. Mr. Also explains sales before and after the first game had been positive.
We started in our first game, no dear. Almost started
After the game, people were purchasing the jerseys despite the defeat. But after the second game, sales dipped. But now I have no hope of selling.
I
have 1,000 pieces at the warehouse, which I hope to sell in the coming days.
The nostalgia of the yellow Adidas jersey of the Black Stars in the early 90s remains with many soccer fans. Francis Quaten, who deals in jerseys, prays the nostalgia keeps the sales.
The Puma jerseys are nice, and people are buying not because of the team's performance, but for its beauty. Now the jerseys worn in the era of Abedi Pele is on the market, and the response is very good.
Kumase's affection for the national team made the Baba Yara Sports Stadium the favorite home grounds for the Black Stars. But the love has waned. Many say they are not interested in owning a replica jersey.
Oh, I just want a simple jersey to wear it anytime, anyhow. Yeah.
But for the Black Stars?
No, not at all. Not at all. Because they are not good. They are not good at all. Yeah, they are not good at all. I wish I shall because abysmal performance.
Ghana has done a lot in the national team, but like with this national team, I can't wear their jersey. I would prefer to wear the old jerseys, like Abedi Pele's and then Tony Abua's, Sika Kono's time jerseys.
Because everybody say let's look guys the GDs can't say friend. No we see no more TV. All they mention. This woman someone doing this and be yes the BRC and be.
Until the Black Stars return to winning ways, these jerseys will continue to hang at the vendors' shops. For Joy News, Nanaya Ojima, Kumasi.
And that's it for the AM News. For more news, you can log to myjoyonline.com. My name is Mapita Sibi.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Time now for us to get into the newspapers and more. We're bringing you all the right information and analysis. We'll be joined shortly by Selon Branty, a policy analyst, as well as vice president at Imani Africa. Okay, so let's get into some of the papers this morning. Let's start with the Daily Graphic newspaper, shall we? No change in 2022 academic calendar. That's according to the GES story on page 13. Let's take a look at that. And so just to clarify, yes, the story is supposed to be on page 13, but guess what? It is not here, so I'll get that story for you. There's also an easy calm at Nima Mamobi. 9 arrested, Chief Imam urges restraint. And it's been really uneasy, if we can even add the word calm to it, but there is an easy calm at Nima, a suburb of Accra, and adjoining Mamobi in the Ayawaso East Municipality. following clashes between two rival groups. There was sporadic shooting, in case you saw some of the footage, on the streets of Nima last Tuesday, just 2 days ago, as some young men wielding guns and other weapons such as machetes and clubs from either group attempted to overpower members of the other. The police moved in to contain the violence and arrested 9 people in connection with the clash. Now, the National Chief Imam, and we all know him, Sheikh Usmanu Nuhu Sharubutu, has condemned the violent clash and called for restraint on the part of the factions and the youth. Now, there have been visits to Nima, investigations continue, and there's been talk that 7 out of the 9 suspects arrested were currently in police custody, assisting with investigations, while the rest, who sustained varying degrees of injury, were at the police hospital in Accra. Some others are on the loose, including the gang leaders. So that story there as well. No Ghana card, no banking. From July the 1st, if you don't have the Ghana card, you're basically going to be cut off the system. You can't bank. You want to have any bank transaction, the Bank of Ghana says you must use your Ghana card or national identity card. How do you feel about that? You can share with us with the hashtag #AMShow. What do you think? Is the state going past its powers, or is it just using its powers to ensure that we all do the right thing? Of course, you know that when we have this national system and all of us are on board, there are other benefits that we can gain as a country. Shraj to extend operations to 30 more districts this year. And COVID-19 booster vaccination starts today. That story is on page 13. I can guarantee that one. Let me just give you a few details of that as I pick the brains of Selon Brantier on all of these matters. So, according to the Ghana Health Service, and we've heard from the Director General, Dr. Patrick Kumabwaji, they will begin the administration of booster doses of vaccines from today. Now, the move forms part of the revision made to the national COVID-19 vaccination policy by the Ministry of Health in collaboration with stakeholders. The policy has also been revised to include the vaccination of pregnant women who will receive either Moderna or Pfizer vaccines. The Minister of Health, Mr. Kweku Agyemang-Menu, announced the review at a press conference in Accra yesterday. Let me say a very good morning now to Selon Brantier. Selon, good morning. Hello, Mr. Brantier. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Good morning. How's everybody?
We're all well here by God's merciful grace. But I hope you're well as well on the other end.
Yes.
We thank God. Let's start with this bit about no change in the 2022 academic calendar, according to the Ghana Education Service. You've heard undoubtedly of the semester system versus the trimester system and all of that. It's been a week already. I've not got your take on that matter. Of course, now we also have the bit about the Ghana Education Service inviting the unions, 4 of them, NATS, NAGRAT, TEU, and the CCTGH, to the discussion table. But what do you make of a semester system for children as little as those in kindergarten and spending 6-7 hours a day in the classroom for about 6 months straight? How do you feel about that?
Well, I have not seen any policy document that triggered or that necessitated this change. As far as I know, the Ghana Education Service has not published, or the Ministry of Education has not published one for the view of the general public, which I think is the first problem. The second problem is that they are now trying to engage people after the fact, which is very, very sad in my opinion. You have a system that has been running, the trimester system that has been running for possibly about 60, 70 years now. And then if you want to change it, it will require some kind of change management that should have taken years to plan, years to sensitize people, because people, even if you don't want to think about the teachers, even parents sometimes schedule their annual leave based on their children's vacations and things like that. So now switching to a semester system means that you are changing the calendar around which parents even run their lives, children also run their lives, teachers also run their lives. Textbooks even should be adjusted for from term 1, term 2, term 3 to first semester to second semester. I think these are all considerations that should have been no-brainers for anyone who was in policy to run some of these things. So it is very shocking that none of these were looked at, none of these were discussed, no change management regime was discussed, and then within a stretch of 2 months to 3 months, you suddenly just give the notice that you are switching. I think some of these experiments on the biggest resource that we have, which is the human beings, which is the children of today, should not be done ad hoc and should be done with some kind of circumspection to understand that it's not only the teachers that are even the stakeholders, but even parents are also very important stakeholders. Publishers of books are important stakeholders. And these things shouldn't just be done like this, honestly.
Right. Well, moving on from this lack of consultation or consensus, let's talk about the other big story here. No Ghana card, no banking. And the Bank of Ghana is making it crystal clear. You don't have the Ghana card from the 1st of July, you're going to be cut off, basically. It's going to be the sole documentation used to conduct banking transactions from the 1st of July. Let's look at the timeline, especially considering that there are so many millions of Ghanaians still not on board with the Ghana card and who are even affected by the SIM card re-registration. And the fact that this is going to be the sole documentation accepted when you want to transact in banks and other financial institutions. Right move, wrong move, too soon, timelines, your take.
These are some of the directives that sometimes you wonder what is the real rationale behind the rush. You are having a situation where people are still queuing endlessly for Ghana cards. You have a situation where the demand is overloaded, and I don't think the supply matches the demand. This is not a time to begin to impose such things. And then also in every system, there are always redundancies, there are always fallbacks. You do not rely on only one particular mode of identification as the be-all and end-all. There are also other alternatives, which also have our biometric data, which can also be verified and actually are currently verified by the system. So it beggars belief that the Bank of Ghana will just get up and then issue such a directive. I don't think it is democratic enough. I don't think it's fair to a lot of Ghanaians.
Just a second. You don't think it's democratic enough, but just looking at their statement, they say it is pursuant to Regulation 7 of the National Identity Register 2012, LI 2111, and it is based on that they are issuing this directive. It is according to the law. And they are saying that it affects banks, specialized deposit-taking institutions, non-deposit-taking financial institutions, payment service providers, and dedicated electronic money issuers, forex bureaus, and credit reference bureaus. All of these are going to be affected, and it is in line with meeting its own requirements and ensuring that we comply with modern, technological, and safe banking procedures. Not good enough reason for you?
Yes, and the reason why I say that is also because of several other reasons. That even in the most advanced countries in the world, where some of us have all been to an experience, even if you do not have a national ID, there is always a fallback identification you can use. One, for example, is the passport, which has almost the same data as your national ID. You have your biometric data in there, which can be used to verify. You can use a biometric verification device to determine your identification if you have a passport, for example. And the fact that even some of these passports now are e-passports, and Ghana is one of the countries that have issued some. So if we should always do things with that in the background, there should be a fallback plan. If I have lost my national ID today and I can't have it replaced immediately, does it mean that I'm going to be moved from a banked person to an unbanked person? And we are in an era where banks want to actually or we are in an era where in this economy, we want every citizen to be banked or every citizen to have, we want to encourage banking services for every citizen. Now, some of these things only make it more difficult for others to join. And then also you have to remember the fact that even those who are trying to get these ID cards, a lot of them are traveling from very far places to try and go get them. Some have to move from one village or one town to another. When we assume that everything is as it is in Accra, we always know
Hello, Salam. All right, so Salam's connection is a bit jerky right now. We'll work it out and reconnect with him as of when we can hear him again. But of course, he's sharing his thoughts on some of those matters, specifically the Ghana card being used as the sole medium of banking come July the 1st. When he reconnects with us, I'll have him wrap up on that and share his thoughts on the Nima incident as well, which is also raising quite a number of concerns. Per the daily graphics checks and our own checks from yesterday, calm has been restored, uneasy though it may be. When we have Selim back online, we'll get the details. But Coach Milovan Raivac, I'll stay on as Black Stars coach. And what else is he saying? He's simply saying that he was brought in to qualify the Black Stars for the World Cup, and that's exactly what he's going to do. He's not going to chicken out. He's not going to resign. He's not going to put pen to paper and say, I am stepping away. But the question is, the same person who said that the crop of players we have now is not the same like we had in 2010 or 2014. What else can he do? Can he do any magic? Some people have been blunt and said that, look, he only thrived at the time because he had the likes of Stephen Appiah, he had the likes of Michael Essien, he had the likes of even Dede Ayew, the Asamoah Gyan's, and many others, Sule Muntari and all, that the crop of players then hit his deficiencies. What do you make of it? You can share with us with the hashtag AM Show. But the Black Stars, meanwhile, are expected back home today after that unfortunate performance in Cameroon. We're still waiting to reconnect with Selim Brandt here, but let's do the Ghanaian Times newspaper. Mayhem and Nima, 9 arrested after bloody clash over turf war between two Nima Mamobi youth gangs. So look, when you look at some of the videos, it's reminiscent of what you would find maybe on the streets of, back alleys of Brooklyn, somewhere in New York, gangster stuff. And these were people wielding all sorts of munitions, machetes, and all of that. Later, when we get into the security discourse as well on the show, as we start our big stories, I'll be engaging Dr. Adam Bona and Professor Enning on some of these matters. Salam, so quickly, you were making a point on the Ghana card bit. Could you wrap up so we take a quick look at the Nima Mamobi incident?
Yeah, I was saying that it's unfortunate because it's not everybody that has equitable access to some of these cards. And I think that it's something that they should not rush into to ensure that the full coverage of, or at least some threshold of about 80% coverage of the NIA card is done before they start dishing out some of these regulations.
Okay. Just to wrap the conversation, do you feel we're just being put through a lot of unnecessary wahala? From get your Ghana card, use only your passport, to the Ghana card for sole means or medium of transactions come the 1st of July, to your SIM re-registration with the Ghana card alone and all of that. Is this too much for Ghanaians, do you think?
It's not about whether it's being too much for Ghanaians. I think it is the rush with which we are trying to impose all of this on everyone.
Okay.
Just to ramp up the utility of the Ghana card. I think if we do it and we face it slowly into the system, it helps everybody concerned, and without all this unnecessary push and pressure on people. Because currently everybody is just fighting to get the Ghana card at all costs. And we just need to be more circumspect about how we deploy all of these transitional activities.
Okay, let's look at this bit about gangsterism, which has kick-started very early this year, the Nima Mamobi clash. I'm sure you followed that incident as well. Like I was saying a bit earlier, people with munitions, all kinds of munitions, machetes and all of that. And it was basically a turf war. The police has tried to contain the situation. Calm has supposedly been restored, but the undercurrents, I guess, are the main problems, because whatever sparked this could do so again. What do you think we should be doing? If you could, give any support, advice, policy support to the Ghana Police Service, what would you say to them?
Well, these things have always been there, and they have always been an undercurrent, especially in certain communities. I think just what needs to be done is that there should be more police collaboration with people in these communities. These groups or gangs or whatever we choose to call them are part of the fabric of such communities. And they're also a very good source of information on crime, or different aspects of life that affect policing or can work with policing and then detection of crime. So I believe that the police should just maintain a very good relationship with such people or with some of the leaders of these people because they're influential in these communities. And I think by doing so, they'll be able to have a lot more cooperation with them. And then some of these incidences will be seen before they escalate.
Have you got both shots of the vaccine? Just trying to find out.
Yes, I have. I had them last year.
So AstraZeneca then? Yes, AstraZeneca. Would you be willing to get a third jab, a booster jab, a booster shot?
Well, apparently some people are even on their fourth boosters as of now. Well, I think what should happen basically, the science behind all of these are still evolving. But I believe what should happen is that at a certain point, we should know whether we are going to treat this COVID-19 as we are treating the common flus that we are having and all. Since, for all intents and purposes, there are a lot of mutations coming in day in and day out. And if we're going to take a booster for each mutation, I'm sure that within the next 2 or 3 years, we will have about 10 booster shots. So at a certain point, we would have to find a fine line between maybe where these end and where we can still move on with our normal lives. Well, but if there's a third booster shot that is required for essential things like travel, etc., I'll just have to take it. And most people would have no option than to do so too.
Right. Let's look at this issue. I've not had the opportunity of discoursing with you on it, so I'll run it by you. Lands Minister inaugurates 2 tech platforms to enhance timber trade in Ghana. That's in the middle spread of the Ghanaian Times newspaper. But what I have to say has nothing to do with this specifically. It has to do with Galamsey and what the Lands Minister has been saying in recent times. Looking, for example, at our water issues and what the Ghana Water Company has been telling us in recent days, and looking at the fact that a lot of the problems we are facing are actually on account of Galamsey. If you felt we should wrap up on this situation as quickly as possible, what would be your timelines? 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years? What would be your timelines? I ask that question because the Lands Minister has given us what he feels to be an objective timeline. I want to find out whether it is realistic for you.
What is this timeline?
I'd wanted to hear from you first.
If we really want to fix this Galamsey problem, we don't need 2 years to do it. We need 1 year to do it. 1 year of very aggressive monitoring, 1 year of very aggressive surveillance. I can tell you for a fact that if we were in the era of the PNDC back in the 80s, this would not have even been up for discussion. But we are in a democratic era where the rule of law prevails. However, it looks like we have had too many people abuse that aspect of the rule of law and the laxity and the lack of, I would say, attention to the protection of our water bodies and our natural environment triggered by this Galamsey has factors that go beyond just their willingness to mine, but also the unwillingness of those who are in power to really do the right thing. A lot of these people are politically connected. This is an open secret. We all know that. And it's whilst you can't really put evidential document, evidence around it. We all know that when you go to these sites, they will tell you that Minister X or MPY or District Assembly Member Z is behind this company, and therefore this company is untouchable. They go and take people's farmlands and then just raid them on their own. They scare and intimidate local chiefs and local opinion leaders and then take over the lands with impunity. Nobody would do this if they didn't have political backing. And as much as rumors are rife, it is very clear that a lot of these people have backers because this is a money matter.
Okay, so having made these crucial points, what if I told you then that the Lands Minister says we'll need between 4 and 10 years? And mind you, that would mean that we're entering another political term or even 2 or 3, because if it's 10 years from now, that would be 3 political terms. It would be the second year of another 3 political terms to come. That is what he says is a realistic timeline. So is it just politics then? Is it just a game being played?
It's very clear a lack of political will. I mean, I'm very disappointed that this is where it comes to where you want to say you need 4 to 10 years to police an area that is possibly just 2 regions or 2.5 regions of the country, and which is not even spread over very wide areas, but spread over the river banks of our small rivers. And we are talking about the Pra River, we are talking about the Brim River, we are talking about alluvial gold that is drilled from forest areas and forest reserves. You do not need so much to do that. I mean, back in the day, all it took was Air Force jets flying over some of these areas, taking aerial pictures of all these zones, and then deploying the military to go and flush them out. This was even in the 80s and the early 90s. I don't think that in the 2000s, when we have satellite technology and we have better surveillance technology available, we would need that many years to do this. It is because we have created this canker and we have encouraged it, and we are not willing to solve the problem. And all we are willing to do is to leave it for people to profit from it before, for a given period of time before we decide to intervene. I do not see any other way in which this works. And it is very sad that we have this kind of political will, or this level of laxity in terms of political will. This is even on the backdrop of the fact that there are people in Ghana here who have designed systems that are going to ensure that these small-scale mining activities can be done without polluting the environment or without adding harmful chemicals to the soil. I know that people from the UMAT, University of Mining Technology in Accra, have developed a system that can work very well to stop some of these things. But to the extent that that's not even promoted or encouraged, and we are still allowing these wasteful methods to go on, and then let these guys go on with impunity because they know they have political backing, it's very disgraceful.
Right. Let's talk money matters. I know that's another area that you like to get into. Recently, we saw, you could call it a release, a draft release from the Finance Ministry. And here are some of the things it says. I want to tie it into a story in the Business Finder newspaper. It says, 2022 promises to be an exciting and eventful year for our country as we seek to build on our collective successes and promote stability and equal opportunities for our people. Let us as a nation gird our loins as trees of righteousness, and the Lord will guide us all to also bring the wealth of nations to ensure prosperity for all. For us as a government and the Ministry of Finance, we remain unwavering in our commitment to build a sustainable entrepreneurial nation. It goes on and on. That is growth inclusive and fosters social justice and social mobility. This year, we have set out our plan in the 2022 budget to implement a coherent and comprehensive strategy. And just to wrap, Selim, they say, government says it is going to be focusing on these 4 areas to bring about the sort of change or stability it seeks. 1, increased resource mobilization. 2, prudent expenditure. That is prudent expenditure management. 3, job creation through industrialization, agriculture, and regional hub strategy on the back of the AFTA. And 4, skills training. That is what government says. And in the final newspaper, we have the bit about government planning to cut expenditure. That is the 2022 budget for all areas of the budget by 20%. Is that good news for you? Looking at our economy currently, the Fitch downgrade and everything, is that good news that could put us back on a good footing?
It depends on where they are going to cut the expenditure from. Obviously, we all have been talking about the fact that there's been profligate spending by the government. A lot of the spending has also not been what you would call productive in terms of the effect they have on the economy. So just doing a macro declaration that you are going to cut 20% of expenditure could go different ways. There are so many sectors of the economy that need financial support from the government. So there has to be better particulars about which areas the spending is going to be cut. Because in some crucial areas, if the spending is cut, it's actually going to stagnate the economy and the economy is not going to grow. So we need to have further and better particulars about that. So on the macro level, it is good news to hear that the government wants to cut expenditure because a lot of its spending has been inefficient and has been expenditure that does not boost the economy or that doesn't have an aggregate effect of boosting the economy. There are so many vanity projects going on in the country that do not have very clear implications in terms of what the economy is supposed to gain from it. We have not seen a lot of those results, and that's resulted or culminated in where we are now. And it's quite obvious that if we do not start running these austerity measures, we are going to have an economy that probably is going to have a bigger deficit. We are going to have the CD falling a lot more this year. It's very dire in some ways if you look at the effect that the downgrades and our debt situation and our budget spending situation is going to have on the economy. But it is good news that there is a willingness to cut our expenditure. That is one. The second issue would be which areas exactly which they are going to cut the spending. And if it starts affecting people like government workers, etc., then we are going to have problems because the real value of the cedi is actually going to go down this year. And therefore, it's going to cause also a lot of disruptions in other areas. So it is very clear that we need better particulars of where the spending cuts are going to come and which sectors are going to be affected. So that if these sectors require more private investment, then those who are doing that can strategize accordingly.
Two issues to wrap in the next 2 minutes, Salom. The first has to do with UTAG. All 15 of their memberships across the country have resolved and said the NLC says our strike is illegal, but like the French would say, bof. We're going to continue anyway. All of them have resolved by speaking to their members. What do you think of that? Do you support it? Genuine way that the NLC says it's illegal?
Well, you see, these are all labor agitations. One of the biggest concerns you would want to have at this point is there should be alternative ways of looking at some of these things. A lot of these universities are now creating their own internally generated funds. Some of it that go straight into the national coffers. I've forgotten how it works, but I think that maybe this is the time for us to begin to decentralize some of these things and have the universities themselves begin to determine some of these things with just some kind of unionized lower grade pay. First of all, the burden on government is huge in terms of pay burden already. And if we want to be very creative about this, I believe that maybe it's time we begin to look at other sources of funding support for lecturers as well as university staff, because they are very crucial to whichever agenda we have for skills training and development of this nation. And seriously, they cannot still be remunerated at the rates at which they are now compared to their peers in the world and their peers even in other African countries. And it is also a matter of understanding their role in everything. So if you have people who have had years of experience in academia suddenly being trumped over by others in other sectors who have just a few years of experience that do not have the amount of sacrifices people have put in, and then the kind of huge classes they have to teach. And
Salom, we appear to have lost your sound. Can you hear me, Salom? Hello, Salom. All right. So we'll get Salom back. We appear to have lost his sound, so he can give us his thoughts there. Let's look at the Daily Guide newspaper. It says, tension mounts at Okaishi in Accra Central 2 months after traders and property owners complained to city authorities let me just get to page 6 where we can continue from, of the construction of a 3-story building that they claimed was violating basic safety codes. The traders and shop owners are claiming that the building, which is currently occupying space serving as the only access route for the Ghana National Fire Service and other emergency services, must be pulled down by the authorities before disaster strikes. Typical story we see all the time, right? And things happen, and then we'll be running around, running kitty, running kata, where we could have just decided not to cheat with the big boys. Anyway, Salom, welcome back. Wrap up on that point you were making.
Yes, so I'm saying that I believe that the composition of the UTAG or the membership of the UTAG shouldn't be more than a few thousands or maybe a couple of tens of thousands. So they should not be, I don't think spending more on their remuneration will cause such a huge dent into the national coffers, especially considering that even for sports, for example, we are prepared to spend huge amounts of money on, let's say, the Black Stars, for instance. And these are one-off events, but these lecturers are sacrificing day in, day out, investing a lot of their time and expertise into so many different fields to be able to ensure that they equip a nation for the future. And I believe that if a nation wants to get its priorities right, one of the things it does is pays attention to academia and pays attention to their agitation. So I believe the right thing should be done, and then their pay package should be looked at, made at par or made to a certain level that also gives or incentivizes others to come in and then also contribute to nation building by helping teach some of the young ones coming up.
Okay. Pardon me, my apologies, my mistake. So we had a little more time than I said we did. So we'll wrap up maybe in the next 5-6 minutes as we look at a few other stories. But you know, Parliament is about to reconvene. Your favorite people, your favorite, boxers, they are getting back with all apologies. But someone with him, Dada, you know what it is. It's just about what we've seen, and hopefully we will not see more of that. But one of the major matters on the back of our B2B minus with a negative outlook rating by Fitch, one of the big three ratings agencies or credit agencies, is the fact that we need to take a good look at the E-levy. Yesterday I had some discussions with some people, and everyone seems to, some people say, yes, taxes are good and our economy is not exactly as good as maybe we think, though the finance ministry, government says it is robust. We need the E-levy, so to speak, some have said. Should we look at the percentage in there? What would you say? The 1.75%, would it work to bring it down a notch? Would it work to bring it down quite a bit? Or should we just look at taking it all off and maybe mopping up areas where we lose money? SNIT, for example, has been saying that it saved so many millions, hundreds of millions last year on the back of plugging loopholes to people who would have been getting payments that they didn't pay because these were ghosts. What do you think?
Yes. First of all, I think that there's a lot of wastage in the economy. So many people are getting access to monies that they shouldn't get. I think that plugging a lot of these holes are very, very important. As to the E-levy, I would believe that it is inevitable that at a certain point, the E-levy will be charged on consumers or on people. But to start it this early, just to plug in a hole in terms of our ability to generate revenue itself is wrong. We should not just jump into introducing taxes arbitrarily just because the government has overspent money over the past few years and therefore they need to just raise revenue to plug in some of the revenue holes that they have. That is like opening water into a basket and then expecting that basket to get full. It never happens. Secondly, the rate at which they were trying to do it or trying to introduce it is nothing short of draconian. It's nothing short of exploitation of a system or of an ecosystem, draconian, especially in the age where we want to introduce digitization of payments and all of that. You do not suddenly just take an explosive and blow up the bridge that is actually going to bring people into electronic banking or into the phase where we are doing cashless payments by imposing such very, very, very draconian and very, very wicked premiums on payments. We have to imagine that if a lot of people who are earning below, let's say, 1,000 cedis have to suddenly send monies to their families or even do things like buy fuel at the filling station, for instance, then you are really going to start taxing a whole lot of people who are already paying different aspects of taxes on purchases of products that they are having, just because the government needs money. And I think that what needs to happen is that they need to review the rates considerably and peg it somewhere at most 0.05%, and then move forward from there, because we cannot have this kind of huge tax, especially when other tax loopholes are being covered.
Salam, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Did you mean 0.5% or 0.05?
No. Yeah, 0.5, yes. Yes, 0.5%.
Okay, 0.5%.
That should be the highest they should go. Ideally, if they were introducing something like this, they should have started from 0.25%.
Right.
And then moved up from there. And then put a threshold for daily transactions at, let's say, 300 or 400 cedis.
Right.
But you put it at 100 cedis, when even some of us, when we are buying fuel, we even buy fuel more than 100 cedis. So imagine you have to buy fuel and then you have to send money to somebody else to pay for something in the house or something, then the tax kicks in, and then suddenly you realize that you are spending more than you need to spend. And a lot of the people who spend a lot of these monies are also business people and traders who already, who already have huge financial obligations that they have to do on a daily basis, and are already paying different aspects of tax on the operations that they do. So when you start taxing this, then it's like double taxation already. And you are increasing the tax burden on people who are already paying one tax or the other for more transactions that they are doing. So it needs to be reviewed, and it has to be done in a way that is humane. And that considers the fact that a lot of the people in this country are actually poor people and aren't as rich as we seem to think. I think there's a bit of a dissonance connection between those who make these policies and their knowledge of the actual lives of people on the ground. And therefore, when they think about the threshold of transactions, like a transaction that costs 100 cedis, they also do not know that there are a lot of people in the very poor bracket that run transactions of this magnitude just because of the kind of business that they do.
Right.
And I think that these are things that should have been considered very carefully before trying to come up with a tax like that, which is actually not even progressive anyway.
Right.
Because the fact that I spend 100 cedis doesn't mean that it is disposable money that I have to spend. It is probably because I have to do a critical business transaction, and turnover does not equal revenue. The fact that I spend 100 cedis doesn't mean that I own 100 cedis. It probably means that I have access to 100 cedis that I need to do something with, but it's probably all not mine, and therefore taxing it all means that you're also reducing the amount of money I can save to actually build the economy and progress the economy further.
Right. That ties into the story on page 3 of the paper. Producer price inflation closes the year at 12.8%. It's something we've mentioned before. And on the banner headline, government borrowing, domestic market only has short-term capacity. That's according to analysts. But the final bit I want to wrap with you on has to do with, guess what? The Ghana Black Stars. Did you watch the last match? Did you watch
Yes, I did. I watched
the match versus Comoros?
Yes.
What did you make of it? Our performance?
I'll just say that I don't think we're really prepared for this tournament. We're relying on our past glory and reputation to carry us through. And also in the game itself, we're unfortunate and we didn't take all the chances that we could have taken.
Do you think some people are calling for Milovan Rajevac to go? He says, for where? For here? He says he's not going anywhere, that he's here to qualify the Black Stars for the World Cup. But we just saw their performances. En route, they played Algeria, lost by 3-0. We locked horns with, well, to be fair, the second-ranked team in Africa, Morocco, lost by 1-0. We felt we would pick up from there. We drew with Gabon in a match that we were winning, and we got beaten by Comoros, debutants, by 3-2. Do you think it's justified those who are saying Milo should go?
Well, it's not just Milo. I think it's the whole reasoning around how we run the football thing in Ghana. There've always been talks about some kind of corruption, favoritism here and there, and people not taking the right talents into the team just so that their agents can get a lot of money and cuts. These are things that need to be looked at forensically, and it's not going to take 2 months or 3 months to do that. We have to really look at what we want to do in terms of the Black Stars, what we want to achieve, even in terms of the marketing potential and so many other things. And then all of that has to come into play in terms of managing the whole team. We have to know what we want from the team and what we believe the team can do, and then recruit the right resources for it. It's not just the coach, it's not just the FA chairman, but it's also even the kind of concentration or the kind of targets that the sports ministry is going to put up. And these shouldn't just be targets that are just lip service, but actually targets that put into cognizance the kind of talent that we want to create,
right,
and where we are going to build that talent from.
Right.
So all of these things need to happen.
In the meantime, we've heard from the sports ministry calling on the GFA for some interactions. We'll see what happens from there. But thank you so much, Salom. Thank you so much,
thank you very
as
much,
usual, for joining us for another Thursday morning. And have a brilliant day. That is Salom Brantier, who joined us for today's discussion of the newspapers. We have a lot more coming your way right after this break. Do stay.
The reason why they always fight is about rivalry. I think it's about self-acclaimed gang, self-acclaimed boss. This one a rule over this, and this guy also want to rule over this. So anytime they clash, there is a small incident, then you see the two clans start to fight. Yeah, I learned it started 3 days ago when the other guy came to change money, and the other guy, his rivalry came and asked him why is he in their territory, and that was the mess.
Some people escaped only by the skin of their teeth.
I did my shop inside where they sell things before they start there. Before I realize I see gun, pim, then I see inside my thing. You do see? Yeah, I don't get problem with anyone, but I'm in my shop where I hear pim. Before I see the gun where I dodge, where I go home. Came back to here. Come back to next top. Then he went out.
So I can count 4 different holes right through the ceiling, and all are, perpendicular like that, all through the space in the roof there.
Yeah. So number 1 is this. 2 is this. Came back from here to here.
Okay, so he's just now showing me, and in fact there are more holes.
For now, almost everyone in the community is living in fear. Many shops are closed and several other vendors are absent. The few vendors who showed up are visibly spooked.
The one who is shooting the gun safe, I did not see his face, but I did hear pa. Before I come out, I see plenty of people, but me, I know if you watch this one, then I run go home. I run and go home. I want my life. It's not the money.
I catch up with this coconut seller who won't speak to me. After several minutes of engaging him off record, he shares how he escaped the chaos.
Obìnrin fi máa ń obìnrin tún fi ní mà nínú ọmọ bẹ́ẹ̀ ṣe mu tí ọmọ bẹ́ẹ̀ ṣe mu no sẹ́ni àdédé nu sẹ́ni àdàdé nu ní tí o nu ẹni máa mi sísá mi dáadé náà mi dé kọ́ tọ́ọ̀pù wọn nù mu. Ẹni náà mi dé kọ́ sí ọ tọ́ọ̀pù wọn nù mu. Ọmọ di bẹ́ẹ̀ sí 3 hours kura wà nù mu. Ọmọ ṣe àti ọmọ di bẹ́ẹ̀ sí 3 hours àti ọmọ fúre à.
For many, it is time for the police to nip the menace of gang clashes in the bud to forestall the future recurrence.
The law, sometimes the law no they work. Sometimes they do say the law in the work. Because ask me why.
Why, sir?
The way I say you should ask me why. Because something is going on inside the area. You see human being, fellow human being, when it's not a police or soldier, he say he is using gun. For what? Because this thing where is happy, we really understand for that thing. Because we the area here, we know say our president, he didn't Nima police station. Where if something happen inside the youth, we suppose that boys where they do all that thing, they supposed to catch him. We see say woman be feel kill somebody, they run go, their son come back, they say they leave him. Why?
More than 24 hours after the incident, it's many police boots on ground. The goal, to hunt down and prosecute the remaining gang members to prevent another clash. Manuel Cranting, Joy News, Accra.
Sure, chief executives of these criminal gangs, we are doing everything possible to make sure that we pursue them, we get them, investigate them, and charge them for court. That is the leader of the Kumoji group. He is Ali Awudu. And the other one, no, excuse me, Bomb group, which is led by Ali Awudu. And the Kumoji group placed 20,000 on their head. Anybody or any member of the public who offers credible information that leads to their arrest will be given that amount. Let me state again, 20,000 cedis have been placed on their head. And therefore, it is our wish that members of the public who collaborate with police to enable us get them to face justice. And let me put on record that wherever we have any gang or group in this country, the police will deal with it. We will not allow it to grow. They should move away from it and engage in productive ventures. They should move away from the formation and growth of such gangs and unlawful structures.
Well, here we go, and that's what we're going to use to kickstart the conversation we're about to have, focusing on security-related matters. The Ghana Police Service, what should our expectations be of them in this new year? It still is new. We're still in the first month of the year, especially on the back of the appointment of a certain Dr. Akufo Dampare. And, of course, what he's been doing in recent times. Some interesting things that he's brought our way. Think of the fact that affected police officers, those whose families are affected, have got psychological or psychiatric help and all of that. For the first time in a long while, we are seeing that when police officers perish, we have ceremonies, proper ceremonies for them, so many things. We'll be delving into the security-related matters with Professor Kwesi Enning, Director, Faculty of Academic Affairs and Research with the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center. We also have Dr. Adam Bona, a security analyst. Gentlemen, a very good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning.
Do we have both of you? Do we have...
Yes, I can hear you. Good morning.
Okay, so this is Dr. Bona, right?
Yes, correct, yes.
Okay, Dr. Bona, a very good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Ben.
Right. So we're going to be delving into quite a number of issues. But let's start with maybe the Ghana Police Service in terms of what you've seen so far. It's been quite some months now since we had Dr. Dampare. What do you see in terms of the Ghana Police Service now? If you had to describe the Ghana Police Service in one word, what would you say, Dr. Bona?
What I would say in one word has to do with, their morale is high, high morale. excellence, if you want to call it that way. Yeah.
So excellence, high morale. That's basically how the things that come to mind when you think of the current Ghana Police Service.
Yes.
What do you think has brought about these sentiments that you're sharing? High morale, excellence. What has worked for them in the last few months? Are you there, Dr. Bonner?
Can you hear me? Yes, I'm here.
Did you get the question?
Yes, I got the question, yes.
Right.
Okay, so with regards to high morale, I mean, myself and my team at the Institute of Security Safety Policy Research and Security Warehouse, we are conducting a research into, which is police perception index among themselves to know how they perceive themselves in recent times. Even though we are not done with, what do you call it, the collecting, surveying them and to do the analysis, the results that we are getting at the moment looks very, most of them are responding to the fact that they are more confident today than before. Most of them are also saying, and the number of them who are answering to whether the IGP is doing well or not is very high as we speak. As many as 90-something% of them are saying the current IGP is the right man for the work, and and the questions, several of the questions they answered positive, very high. And so looking at that on a more scientific base, you want to say, even though the research is not we are not done yet, you want to say, as we speak, police officers feel more confident, and police officers feel, a bit more better, feel a bit more better than they used to feel in the past. And probably what has brought about that change has to do with the new leadership. And most of us kept complaining and kept shouting on top of roofs and saying that the Ghana police indeed had, the men who could do the work. They had personnel who could do the work when given the opportunity. And therefore, those who have crossed the retirement age should not be given contract. And I would want to say that some of us have been vindicated. You can see Akufo Dampare, the current IGP, is everywhere. Since he took over, there are some communities that no IGP has ever visited, where politicians, even during elections, will not dare visit. And some of these communities, I would have visited some of these communities many years ago, 20 years ago, in the Atebubu area, the Stene district, the OT area. He's visited most of these places, visiting police officers. In fact, when those two police officers were shot in the Upper East area, I was actually heading to the Upper East. I actually met him at the Air Force Base in the Upper East. He had gone to convey the bodies himself to, Accra. And one of them who had serious injury, he was there to make sure they evacuated them medically to Accra. These are some of the things, and you can see his ability to move around among his officers, to move around among the people. It's a, moral booster for the officers and men. And you can see that is having a telling positive effect on crime fighting. In the past, even me at my level used to be so afraid, so scared with regards to the rampant violent crimes that were going on unabated without anyone fighting it, to the extent that we had a situation where these violent criminals, were able to rob in front of the former IGP, when I say in front of the police headquarters. This and many more actually dipped the morale of the police back then. And other police officers who were killed and, in broad daylight, and nothing really happened. And so as far as I'm concerned, this and many more, for me, is what is making me say that their performance today, to me, is excellent. When I say it's excellent, it doesn't mean everything is okay. There's still a lot of room. But if you look at where we have come from, we got to a point where, violent robberies was something that went on unreported. Even the media, it got to a point you stopped reporting violent crimes because then it was every day you record about 10 all over the country, violent, crimes. So as far as I'm concerned, he has done very well together with his men. And today you go to those who visit the police headquarters and other places will tell you that you go there and they are out there on the beat doing their work. And so I sometimes go to the headquarters trying to collect data. You go there and most of the officers are out there because if the IGP is not sitting, you don't sit.
You dare not sit yourself. Right.
Yes,
what would be the
it.
What would be the downsides, though, the drawbacks that you've seen that are still not being addressed as far as our policing is concerned, that you would want the Ghana Police Service to take a critical look at, especially in 2022?
2022, I think, working longer hours. Officers have complained. The research we are conducting, a portion that talks about number of hours. They have complained largely that working longer hours is something that they are not too pleased with, and also their welfare. They answered that they would want their welfare to be, to be looked at, to be really looked at, and also retooling. There has been, substantial retooling over the years. As for that, I must confess, the police service have had some amount of gadget equipment coming in, but there is a promise of, body cameras that are supposed about 25,000 or 20,000 body cameras that were supposed to have come in. Those have not come in yet. There's the promise of the police helicopters. These helicopters should have come in. I know the procurement is done, and I'm also aware that they are supposed to have been delivering them. The hangar for these helicopters have been built. Those who are supposed to be piloting them have been trained and all that, but the helicopters have not yet touched down. The other thing that has to be looked at, which probably would come under welfare, has to do with accommodation.
Right.
Officers largely don't have accommodation. So you have 5,000 or more police officers who are going to be joining the current 37,000 officers who are, who are currently working, who largely don't have accommodation. And so the additional 5,000 or more that are going to come on are only coming to compound the situation. And in addition, I think substantially most of them, there are no, any backlog, arrears with regards to promotion. So it's one thing I would want to congratulate the Minister of the Interior, the IGP, and the rest. And so these are some of the things that I would say 2022, we want to see them more out there and also dealing with gun, related activities and conflict in Baku and other places would have to be dealt with 2022.
Right. And that's topical, what you just mentioned, gangsterism and its effects. We saw the recent Nima Mamobi clash. We're not going there yet. And I saw a post where someone recently was talking about the fact that we tout ourselves as a peace-loving country and all of that, but we have all of these pockets of incidents in Baku and different parts of the northern belt of our country, and even coming down south, some of them chieftaincy issues. We'll get into those because I want us to segregate that. But we can also talk about the fact that the current Ghana Police Service has been very interactive on social media, on Facebook, and they disseminate a lot of information, which is also good. But in your report that you're putting together, is there any component that also looks at their recruitment and training? Another worrisome aspect of the work they do, because sometimes we've heard of the influences that go in there, the crop of people we get in there, and of course, if you're not getting people of a certain standard, then it's like we say in computing, giggle, garbage in, garbage out. Do you have a component for that in your research right before we proceed with other questions?
Yes, correct. We have a component that talks about a question like I am satisfied with the recruitment process into the Ghana Police Service. That is the question. And you have a scale of 1 to 5, where if you answer to 5, it means you are happy, it's excellent. If you answer 1, it means, you are not. And you have most officers have answered to 1, have ticked 1. 1, which means that most officers, the current police officers who have answered, who have answered to, the questionnaires that are out there, are not happy with processes leading to the recruitment of police officers, the processes leading to the way they are trained, the processes leading to, the way they are deployed, the whole process. They are not happy with it. And so, yes, we have a component there that, seeks to ask them, because this is they themselves to know, because then a police officer would be able to tell you more about how police officers feel or how he feels than how civilians would be able to determine how police officers feel. And so this research is seeking to, find out among themselves how they feel about their work, how they feel about their bosses, how they feel about, recruitment and all those things, welfare and all that. Yes, so there's a portion and they are not happy. What it means is that if people are recruited and, the processes, probably officers are not too happy, then one will say that those who are in charge would have to look at it. And so once we are done, I do believe that multimedia is going to be one of the media houses we are going to be collaborating with to launch the report. We will launch the report. Other partners are coming about to launch it, hopefully in March, that area. And so, I do believe that it would help to shape policy when, it is launched and passed on to the policymakers. It would help to say, to shape policy, because then you have among the officers themselves, they are not happy with the way probably they themselves were recruited into the service. They would have wished that there was a more better way, transparent, a more better way of recruiting them into the service to probably help them with their work.
Right. And moving on from there, we also have an issue that you've actually spoken of in recent times. I just want us to look globally at some of the issues that have hit us in respect of the Ghana Police Service. And you've been outspoken talking about the incident at Atiko Junction, for example. You felt it was unfortunate that the commanding officer at the relevant police station had not been able to rope in or rein in the officer in charge at the time. There have not been too many developments on the back of that matter. What do you have to say now that we know the little that we do know about that situation? What else do you have to say in respect of that?
I want you to which incident is that? I'm trying to.
So the police officer who was driving a vehicle, a Vitz, ran into.
Oh yes.
Some people actually around Atiko Junction. And I was just asking what your follow-up is. I mean, when it happened, you had some pretty harsh words for the Ghana Police Service and the commanding officer. What do you have to say now? Not much has developed since then.
Not much has developed. My checks indicate that the police are investigating it. But, I mean, I do believe and I have confidence in the IGP and his team of, men around him. I would want this issue to be thoroughly investigated. We shouldn't have a situation where when police officers are touched, all of us go on rooftops and we are screaming out and saying that deal with them. We want a situation where when officers also tend to commit crimes, say heinous crimes such as this, they are not shielded. We want a situation where we should have, what's the name? Commanding officers swiftly coming out to tell us the truth. But unfortunately, not much has been done with regards to the commanding officer at the Doko also. He coming out, trying to tell us they cannot give us much, a lot of information. How can you say you cannot give us any information? This issue that is unfolding in Nima, Mamobi area, the police is telling us they are looking for ABCD, they are looking for a certain this, a certain that, and a certain this. And so mine is that Just as when civilians commit crimes, we are happy to publish their names. When police officers are suspected to commit crimes, we want to see their commanding officers, where they work. The officers should be pleased to put out their names. And so as far as I'm concerned, I believe it's an issue that would be dealt with, knowing the current dispensation. They have promised all of us. I mean, some of us have had backroom conversation with the current, police command, police administration, and they have told us that nobody will be shielded in the Ghana Police Service. If you commit a crime, you will be punished. And I've seen others getting punished under the current, police administration. So it's good. We have to continue, and I would probably reiterate that the media, we all have a role to play, yourselves. When these issues happen, I think we should do probably monthly review of these incidents in order to remind our authorities, i.e. the police, the military, and the rest, when things happen and you don't deal with them, we will do a monthly review of your performance and let you know what you dealt with right, what you didn't deal with right.
Is that something you have in the works? Is that something you have in the works, Dr. Bona? Is it something you are planning on doing?
Yes.
Monthly reviews of the police and its work and how they're faring?
Exactly. It's something that we are working on. It's something that we are working on, and the year has just started, so we are already cataloging, incidents that started the 1st of January. We are looking at them and how the police dealt with them. And so we will do the review, every first week of, the following month.
Okay.
So that those they didn't deal with, we try to let them know these issues are still outstanding. Deal with them, because then this year, I don't think any of us is going to fall asleep. Since Dan Parish is not falling asleep, I do believe that those of us, the security watchers, we have no reason to fall asleep, including his commanders.
Okay. Is the police, just very, very briefly on this one, is the police just protecting this person, the police officer involved in the Article Junction incident? Is that how you feel?
I don't want to feel that way, knowing who Dampare. I don't want to feel that way.
Yes, but the fact is that in other instances, we've been pretty speedy in resolving them, in arresting people and fishing them out and doing this and that. If we come to the NEMA issue, which we'll be talking about shortly, a bounty of 20,000 placed on the heads of these people, you see action. In this instance, it's one of those sore points or that stick out like a sore thumb, where we're not exactly seeing that same kind of energy. Is that not the way you see it?
Well, yes. Looking at it, it will be safe to say the police might be seen to be protecting one of their own. We shouldn't be. And so some of us can probably ask that whoever this officer is, I think they've given us his number and all that. We need to know what happened. I mean, 2 people have died out of his recklessness. 2 people have died, and these are civilians. And for me, that would not augur well for the police itself. And so that is not to say they aren't doing anything about it, but we need more information.
Okay.
If you look at, even though we are here to discuss Nima Mamobi, we have been very strict. Even last night there was a press conference held by my good friend ACP Kwesifori with regards to what they are doing and how they want to arrest these perpetrators.
Okay, doke. Let's interact now. Let's usher in Professor Kwesi Ening, Director, Faculty of Academic Affairs and Research, Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center. Prof, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Hello, Professor Ening. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hello.
Great.
Yes, I can hear you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. We've had quite a lot going on in your absence, so you're going to have to catch up. But very briefly, I remember sometime late last year, I had an interaction with you on the Ghana Police Service after the president had confirmed Dr. Ekufu Dampare at post as IGP. And you said it was early days yet to give any assessment of his work as IGP. Would this be a good time after all that we've seen, psychiatric assistance for police officers, for victims of, those whose families have been affected. So many things, novelties that we've maybe not seen in the Fourth Republic that are taking place. Would it be a good time for you to give an assessment of the Ghana Police Service? I mean, what are the positives you've seen, the negatives, and on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate them?
Well, I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, I will rate him around 6.5. And let me try to explain why. You know, when Dr. Dampare was appointed, I also made it clear that because of his stance, 2 things will take place. One will be a reluctance by the powers that be to give him the free hands. Second will be his metal. Is Dr. Dampare strong and tough enough to take the fight to us? Or were we to take the fight to him, will he have the strength to push back? So I'm not surprised at all about the levels of crime, their willingness to use guns, and of course, the positively robust response coming from the police. So within the space of time that he has been in office, there is almost self-discipline that we see beginning to emerge in Ghanaian society. I mean, on Sunday, I was coming from Winneba. The traffic was terrible, but people were disciplined in that traffic. And I think it is because of the signal that Dr. Dampare and his team have been, showing. So far, so good. A lot still needs to be done. And I think the gangsterism in Nima has shown that there's a long way to go. Guns are in abundance. People want to challenge authority. But I can assure you, change has come in terms of how the Ghana Police Service as an institution will work and will respond to the challenges that we are facing. So kudos to the Ghana Police Service so far.
Interesting, because we've seen about a bit of prophecies and all of that, so quite a bit of work they've been doing. But let's talk about some of the recent incidents. Just 2 days ago.
Let me talk about this prophecies thing for 30 seconds.
Okay, go ahead, Prof.
The good Lord only speaks with one voice. People have given prophecies, and when they are challenged, they change it. Charlatans in this business who aim good and bring the name of God into disrepute have all run away. In the Old Testament, those who did God's work would still have given prophecies because it was the voice of God. Okay, so the charlatans who are talking, screaming and shouting, they should stay where they are as charlatans. And please let's allow Dr. Ekufu Dampare to get his job done.
Prof, Sebi, is that what you mean? They should stay in there.
No, they shouldn't keep on lying.
Right.
They shouldn't keep on double-crossing people. Because when they do that, and they are reported, they will be dealt with. This is the rule of law, with respect for human rights. But the rule of law and the human rights work within certain parameters. So if you think you are doing God's work and you want to prophesy, please go ahead. Nobody's stopping you. But don't create fear and panic in society because you want to do it for money. Now, somebody prophesied about a powerful imam dying a couple of years ago. And when he was threatened, he quickly changed his mouth. Now, this is not God's work. That is gangsterism masquerading as God's work.
You call that gangsterism masquerading as God's work?
Yeah, gangsterism.
It's interesting because that person court issues surrounding that, but since you've decided not to mention the name of the person, let's leave it as it is.
No, I think we all know the character.
Oh yes, I believe we all know.
Let's not dignify that name on your program. I mean, it's not worth.
Right. Gentlemen, so I'd like us to look at this issue of gangsterism and what's transpired recently in Nima Mamobi. It took some of us by surprise, but the point is, should it really have surprised us? Because there have always been simmering undercurrents. And even if you widen the scope of the conversation, poverty, grinding poverty, if you know these communities well and if you've been there with them, if you look at the staggering levels of youth unemployment and the number of them just going around with not so much to do and all of that. Let's start from the root issues, even before we get to what transpired. Prof, why do you think we are seeing some of these things in the Nima Mamobi area?
Well, authority as we know it is beginning to give way. We are seeing a youth bulge that is frustrated, a sense of exclusion, easy availability of guns, a culture where demonstration of macho behavior and utterances are glorified, poor usage of police intelligence in preventing the ability of people to organize and publicly demonstrate their capacity to threaten society. So there are a gamut of reasons, we may call it root causes, that has brought the neighbor Mamobi clash into the public domain. But it is not surprising at all. What has surprised me is that it took so long for it to take place.
You are surprised that it took so long for it to take place. You expected something like this, an outburst like this, much earlier.
I expected it much earlier because all the factors I've given, availability of guns, a macho culture, a sense of exclusion, a sense of victimhood and dispossession, they've all been there, and then an unwillingness or an incapacity to use intelligence to prevent and to intervene. Because if you see the speed with which we've been giving the names of the gangs and the names of their leaders, then it creates a certain impression that these are people who are known, that these gangs are known.
So that then points to an intelligence failure, right?
Precisely. Now, these are not gangs or groups whose actions inure to the benefit of the larger society. So the question is, if within an hour or two we knew the leadership, we knew the name, possibly had an idea about the structure and the psyche driving them and the types of economic criminal activities that they engaged in, then why didn't we intervene? Why wasn't that intelligence used to prevent what happened? So whilst we are chasing these bad guys, I think we need to look within the use of intelligence and proactive intelligence and operational intelligence in preventing and infiltrating some of these groups. Because right now, in almost every community, you know who the intelligence officer is, which should not be the case. Okay, earlier on, that intelligence officer would be a photographer, a shoe shine, a shoe repairer, a baker, and nobody knew. Okay, so there is a failure of intelligence here that we would need to look at whilst we still chase the criminal. But my interest right now is how other groups may want to opportunistically exploit what has taken place,
right?
Knowing now that they are youths for whom violence has been a currency. And I think we have had this conversation severally. You know, these are people who can be hired and will be hired to perform particular acts of violence.
Will be hired by whom? Will be hired by whom?
Oh, competing interest. It could be business. It could be politics. It could be all sorts of things. You know, but what has happened in Nima has sent a clear signal that the way that we perceive armed violence,
right,
public demonstration of that use of violence has changed and changed fundamentally.
Okay.
My work and argument over the last couple of years has been to understand some violence as a currency. And I think Amobi Clash has demonstrated that that value is high, it is daring, it is bold, it is well organized, and it is ready for business.
And
we are going to see,
right.
We are going to see some more of these acts of violence.
We're going to see some more of these acts of violence. Okay, so you say it should have happened even earlier, and we're going to see more. Dr. Bona, let me come to you on the same subject. Do you feel same? Do you think along the same lines that Professor Inning is thinking? We had the Accra disturbances from last year, and we also what followed from there. This year we've started off on the wrong footing with this Nima Mamobi crisis on our hands. Did you see it coming? And do you foresee more of same, as Prof is suggesting? Dr. Bona.
Let me say good morning to my brother, Prof. Enin. Please let him know I'm still waiting for my Christmas hamper.
Prof can hear you loud and clear, so I'm sure he'd respond to you himself.
Yes, to see.
And congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Prof. Just like Prof. Enin said, this thing has been waiting to happen, and it would happen again, and could be worse if we don't deal with it. And I tell you what, we've got to face the facts. What we saw in Nima did not just happen, on the day. Who created it? It is the politicians.
The politicians created it?
Yes, the politicians created it. Let me take you back. You know what? When election is due or elections are about taking place, where do these politicians go to hire these bandits? You can go back to Ayawasu West Wagon. Those who fired the guns, those who shot at, what do you call it, the young people who were at that particular polling station were Muslim young thugs who have been hired into the national security. Those who were fired at are Muslim young thugs who were fired, young people, I won't say they are thugs, who were fired at. If you go to Accra, we had a similar thing in Accra, right? And so our Zongos have become a breeding ground for extremism, radicalism, and violent, young people who are ready to offer their services to the highest bidder. And so let's face it, I am aware the Chief Imam's office, my brother, Sheikh Armaya and co, have been playing a certain role. But I will tell you that it actually goes beyond the Chief Imam's office. Even though as the leader of the Muslims, one will say that his office, elections may be few, maybe in June, maybe there will be some internal elections among some of the politicians, and then we go into 2023, then the activities of maybe campaigning will start. And these young people, some of them who you see performing these activities were previously used by politicians. And so it is a reason why the community know them, and the community know they are well connected. As far as I'm concerned, these are people the security agencies know. And so, you see, when you see these things happening, it's only happening because they are emboldened, they have the resources. And so when elections are not taking place, when there is no land to protect, when there is no debt to be collected, then they have to find a way to show up that they have the power. And so as far as I'm concerned, were we not here when a soldier at ANC shopping mall, is it Christmas or New Year's Day, fired a number of rounds at the ANC shopping mall?
Right.
Who gave him the weapon? We don't know.
New Year's
the weapon, Day. Yes. Who gave him the weapon? We don't know. What has happened to him? We don't know. The fact is that we have too many illicit firearms at the hands of these young people. And there's a lot of research. I'm sure my, brother Prof will tell you that, you see, we have been talking about these things, but the truth is that nothing is happening. You go to Kaswa, Bujumburam area, now the situation has calmed down. But go to Ashaman, go to Alaba, go to other places. Just when was it? I think yesterday, a young person, a young boy was arrested with a firearm in his rucksack with 40,000 Ghana cedis, with $1,000 on a scooter, on a motorbike. And randomly they stopped him and they found this in his bag. This is just one stop and they found this. So just imagine how many of them are parading around with illicit firearms, illicit resources. And just like Prof said, you know what? They are there, if they are idling, someone would use them. And also the use of drugs. Go to these Zongo communities. You will be amazed how many of these young people idling are able to find the resources to, use cocaine, to use tramadol, to use weed, heroin, to use all sorts of drugs. And when these young people become high, what do you expect them to do? As far as I'm concerned, I have had these conversations with Sheikh Armiya, if he's listening to me. I've had it with, the Light Foundation. I have been part of seminars that the Light Foundation had among Muslim young. And you see, you go, like I said, I don't want to repeat myself, but these things are happening. Why is it happening in the Zongo communities? Is there a reason why the Zongo communities have become a breeding ground for criminals? Let's face it. Let's not mince words. These are facts. During elections, they are hired to, and used the wrong way. When there are no elections, those who have land and want to protect the land go into the Zongo communities and hide them. Right. My point is that it is also with the tacit support of the executive because they use them when they want. Mine is that we have a national security that I have spoken about at length. And I have said that we need the national security to restructure itself and ensure, just like Professor Kusiedin said, an intelligence officer is not the one who is wearing a Katamanto. He didn't say it, I'm saying it. A Katamanto jacket with a radio tagged in his pocket. He goes to a chop bar and they say national security for Naba. No, an intelligence person would be the watch seller. An intelligence person would be the shoe shine, the cobbler or the shoe shine boy who probably has been trained to identify, to analyze and know that this person is a criminal and be able to report. Right. Or the guy who is cleaning the drains. This is what we call, people who are trained to ensure that they bring information to the authorities to nail some of these people. But unfortunately, you and I would know a certain national security couple, the moment you see them, you know that, okay, you don't have to ask, he will tell you.
National security for
Naba. That's the problems we have, yes.
Right.
National security for Naba, yes.
Which is very wrong, because he shouldn't even be known. But very valid point you make there. Prof, how do we, if you had to map out a strategy, and this is your area, how do we get past this hurdle? If you had to give advice on this hurdle, what would you say? And what component do you feel should go into the Zongo Development Ministry, for example, or the Zango Development Ministry, depending on how you want to call it? But just as Dr. Bonas said, they are actually taking advantage of people in these communities. How much do you feel it should feed into a solution, a permanent solution moving forward?
But I think we are not ready to look for solutions much more permanent, because the groundswell of frustrated available youth fits into the calculus of people who want to exploit and use them. I don't think we've reached a tipping point where the levels of violence and destruction become so massive that as a nation we say, hang on, we need to move back from the brink. We need to do something about this. We need to give people a new and a different consciousness about their identity, about who they are, and the value and the honesty of decent work. I'm sorry, we are not there yet. And until we get there, we will be introducing platitudinal programs that do not seek to help the youth, but rather seek to help individuals to benefit. So my assessment is that until we reach that tipping point where the violence becomes more encompassing and there is generalized fear and uncertainty, then we will say this has become an existential threat and we need to do something about it. But we are not there yet. We need to see about 3, 4, 5, 6 times the escalation of violence and destruction that we have seen before as a nation we will start to do the hard thing that we need to do.
Right. I want to start off on the other belt of the conversation that we're going to have with you on the herdsman situation. And maybe I'll apportion, God willing, about 5 minutes to each of you to share your very detailed thoughts on that. I shudder sometimes to use the word Fulani because of the stereotypical elements in there. So I'll just say herdsmen. When it comes to their grouping, I mean, we can go as far back as the Ghana Empire and all of that. But in recent times, we had that situation in the Ashanti region, specifically the Asante Achim North District of the Ashanti region, where that 15-year-old, together with his brother, were going to draw water. They were accosted by these herdsmen, and next thing you know, one of them, the 15-year-old, was slashed, received multiple slashes of a machete, and now he has met his ancestors. The underlying issues are what I want us to look at this morning. For decades, we've had these issues. Prof, how do we finally bring some closure to these matters, and where are we getting it wrong in terms of dealing with the Fulani community? Are we missing out on something that is leading to this problem time and again?
Once more, we've missed the boat. Those that we call Fulanis, some of them are 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th generation Ghanaians. But there is a reluctance by the state of Ghana and those who consider themselves the legitimate and original indigenous people to accept what I would term, for the lack of a better terminology, these Ghanaians. So the state of Ghana itself exploits this lacunae by issuing identity cards to these people, taxes their cattle, both at the state or at the regional community and then at the local levels, but is unwilling and unprepared to give them the protection that they deserve. That feeds into a wider identity crisis. And over time, it has festered and transformed. And when you push people to the wall, they respond. So this is a problem that is going to get much, much, much worse. And I'm going to give a couple of reasons why.
Prof, you will tell us why, but you're sounding a bit pessimistic. It's almost as though for each situation you think things can only get worse. Why is that?
I've been talking about this for 22 years. On this particular farmer header crisis, I'm not pessimistic. You see, this is what has brought me to where I am. I say things as they are, and I have enemies across the spectrum. But you know what? Those who hate me for telling the truth, that's their problem. I don't expect them at my father's funeral. I don't want them at my mother's funeral, because they'll come and drink 20 bottles of Guinness and eat 10 cities. I don't share the same values with them. So I'll keep speaking the truth. And if the truth sounds pessimistic, I don't lose sleep over it at all.
So what is the truth we're missing?
Is that we are being hypocritical about this. If you like, after this program, call those who matter in this country and let them tell you about the ECOWAS protocol on transhumans, if they can just describe it offhand. As a nation, we have signed on to these international instruments, but we are doing nothing about it. And those instruments are very straightforward, because it is part of the culture of these people in terms of moving their cattle across national boundaries. We need to create particular parts of the born country X are left behind. So there are regulatory processes and mechanisms that we have overlooked. Now, when the state fails to deliver on what it has signed internationally, and I'm only telling them to go, that is not necessary. Somebody's head must be on the chopping block, because failure to implement is contributing to the problem that we are facing.
Whose head? In an instance like this, whose head? The interior minister?
I don't know, but there must be some head.
National
there
security.
Must be somebody who should be implementing. Okay, somebody must be implementing. And it is that consistent failure over time that has deepened this problem. Okay. The loss of lives, the destruction of property, those are issues that we can deal with. But that is not the core. Those are not the core. Those are not the core issues. Okay. So climate variability is going to worsen. The availability of guns once more. It's not that I'm being pessimistic. Guns are everywhere. We are improving our capacity to manufacture. The demands are growing, and there's a certain willingness to supply. But when you put the truth from the very top, okay, we are threatened for talking about small arms. We're talking about leakages. Okay? I'm going to challenge you. Within the next 2 to 3 years, we are not going to see machetes being used or these small guns. We are going to see IEDs, because the explosives are available, the detonators are available.
How many years did you say again? In how many years?
2 to 3 years.
2 to 3 years.
Yes, 2 to 3. Okay, because we know that when people want to make boreholes, they go to Tutu, hire some of these guys, and they will come home, dig a hole, put in the explosives to identify, to map, and to prevent the escalation. First, of the raw material infrastructure for causing harm and for creating.
So it appears, it is clear, Prof, that this is a much bigger issue than we see it on the surface, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. But let me be fair and give you, Dr. Bona, a bite of this as well. If you can do 2 minutes for me, my apologies, I'd be grateful. What do you see in this instance? What are we missing? What's the way forward?
Which of the instances, if you can?
So the Herdsmen incident, what are the focal issues? What do we do going forward?
Well, what we do, we've been trying to do them just like my brother Prof. Enin alluded to. We know we've signed on to, an international protocol, the ECOWAS protocol. And so when I hear people say Fulani, Fulani, I say, who is a Fulani? Your citizenship is not defined by your tribe. Your citizenship is defined by law. And so if you want to denigrate a Fulani, then you are denigrating your second lady, because she's a Fulani. Okay, she's a Fulani. And so as far as I'm concerned, when I hear people talk about it, sometimes I marvel. And I marvel because, you see, lands in this country, don't belong to the states, even though the state has that power to regulate them. And so you have, in one breath, we were told we were supposed to have all this, what do you call it, facilities that are supposed to be, built to manage this herdsmen and their animals. Unfortunately, we don't have them. We haven't built them. I know, a ministerial task force was put in place to check this herdsman-farmer conflict. I don't know, what has happened to it. Mine is that this issue is a non-issue if professionals are put to the wheel to deal with it. It should have been to our advantage. This, header, what do you call it, farmer conflict, we could have turned it to be an avenue for creating more jobs. Why did Kwame Nkrumah, the facility he built in the Upper East? He built it because they bring in the animals, and when they are living, a portion of it is left to be slaughtered for, local consumption and, for factories here. And so as far as I'm concerned, why should people, these are crop farmers and these are animal farmers. Why should they be fighting? If we have regulations that could have been used to solve it. Right. But unfortunately, we have been very hypocritical and apportioning blame here and there. Mine is that the solution is very simple. But when in this part of the world, simple solutions, we don't like the simple solutions. We want people to die. And then we begin to talk about it. What happened recently in Agogo, has been happening for the last how many years? And it is not going to, stop, because the herdsmen are going to come, and locally, people also own them, and people recruit these Fulani people. And when they are here, do we integrate them well into our society? So for me, let's not be hypocritical about it.
Crucial questions. Right. So three matters that both of you are mentioning: an identity crisis for the herds people or the Fulanis, the fact that we are not addressing the core issues, and myriad other matters that you make mention of. But how exactly we're going to move forward with them is the big question. We're being hypocritical, you say as well. But I'd like to say a very big thank you to you, Professor Kwesi Ening, for joining the conversation. Thank you so much, Prof.
Well, thank you.
Great. Professor Kwesi Ening, Director, Faculty of Academic Affairs and Research, Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center. Dr. Bona, thank you as well for staying with us in the course of this conversation.
Thank you.
Dr. Adam Bona is a security analyst. And both of them joined us for this conversation. Now we go to the next leg of the big stories, and it has to do with COVID-19. It has to do with the booster shots and now pregnant women being incorporated. It has to do with how well we're doing in terms of dealing with COVID-19 and what the way forward is for our country. We'll be joined by our guests after the break as we get into that conversation. Do stay. Well, here we are discussing the COVID-19 pandemic, and it's all about the Ghana Health Service giving booster shots. We're going to be having an interaction on that. We're also going to be talking about pregnant women who are now eligible for the shots. Our guests, Dr. Yao Bediako, immunologist at WACBIP of the University of Ghana, and Dr. Fred Adomako-Boateng, Bono East Director of Health. Gentlemen, a very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Do we have both of you? Do I hear Dr. Yabediako? Okay, so I have Dr. Fred Adomako-Boateng then.
Good morning.
Right, good morning to you. Thank you for joining the conversation. The last time we had an interaction, Dr. Adomako-Boateng, you spoke of the fact that, of course, your region had not met its targets and you were still continuing in terms of the drive to meet certain numbers. What has changed so far? What are the gains that you can share with us this morning as far as the vaccination drive in the Bono East is concerned?
Okay. So we are not doing bad. I mean, if we listen to the Director General's and the Minister of Health,
the presser
meeting the press yesterday, I think you saw the figures, kind of. We are not doing bad if you look at the figures in the country. But then you see that following the population census, our figures have been updated. Initially, the total population was around 920, almost 1 million. With the census now, the population of Bunais is now 1,221,000.
Right.
People who are now eligible for the vaccines are 774,000. You remember initially it used to be 730,000.
Right.
So based on this and with changing the figures, now the people who have gotten at least one dose, the population is 34.8, almost 35%.
Right.
And those who are fully vaccinated for Bunei is 15%. So this is where we stand now. If we had not actually updated the figures, we will be clocking around 40% or 42%. But we are still going to step up the drive and to make sure that people who are really eligible for the vaccines will really get it. Because if you see the figures coming up with admissions, with deaths, we think that if you have the vaccines, you are really protected. So this is the drive that we are going to embark on.
Thanks for that update. Let's segue into that especially because the Director General of the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Patrick Kumabwaje, was speaking yesterday, like you rightly said. Let's take some snippets from what they had to say at that confab with the press.
Booster will be offered to all health workers. Will be given booster. And the booster is 3 to 6 months after your last vaccination. Which means that if you had your last dose, say in March, you'll be eligible for a booster dose between 3 to 6 months. Not immediately you've had that. And so that will affect all health workers, persons with underlying medical conditions such as diabetes, hypertension, persons 60 years and above, frontline security personnel, and members of the executive, judiciary, and legislature. It actually mirrors the initial prioritization that was done. Pregnant women who are unvaccinated will now be offered, can now be vaccinated. Previously, it was not policy to vaccinate them. Now they can be vaccinated. And they are recommending that we use either Moderna or Pfizer, which is the mRNA technology, to vaccinate them.
All right, so this is the real state of affairs when it comes to our vaccination drive. Let me interact now with Dr. Yabediako, who joins us via phone. Looking at the projections we had, let's say last year, for the tail end of last year, where we were expecting to vaccinate some 20 million people, and where we find ourselves currently having gone through this latest wave of Omicron fears and all of that. How would you assess how far we have come so far in a nutshell?
Thank you, Benjamin. Well, I think we've done, we can pat ourselves on the back a little bit for staying the course. But as the numbers would suggest, if only 15% are fully vaccinated, the goal is 70%. So we still have considerable way to go. So I think we have to continue. The challenge is now that number of fully vaccinated. Now with the inclusion of boosters, it almost resets your clock. And this was the fear we had, that if we did not vaccinate quick enough, we would have to start revaccinating people who are already vaccinated. And that is in effect what the booster is. There's a realization that about 6 months after your last dose, the efficacy of the vaccine wanes considerably. And so there is a need to administer boosters. That is what's happening in Europe and North America and other parts of the world. So as much as it is great that we have managed to so far fully vaccinate 15%, we are trying to hit 70%. But the longer it takes us, the more we have to administer boosters. So, you know, if you understand what I mean, we have to really accelerate the process of vaccinating so that everybody at least gets their first 2 doses. But then we have to bear in mind that we are also now in the era of having to give boosters. So that means that till people have received their booster, they are no longer as protected as they were. And so we are going to have to just keep vaccinating.
Let's talk about vaccines for pregnant women. And now we're saying we're giving the green light for them to also start getting vaccinated. What are the pros and cons, scientifically speaking? The rest of the world, some of them have already initiated this course. Initially, it wasn't really known because this is a new strain of COVID, whether it was safe to vaccinate pregnant women. We're now going to embark on that journey. What are the things we should be considering?
Oh, every pregnant woman should get vaccinated. It's as simple as that. In some ways, we are a little bit slow to respond. The reason you typically wait is to, you know, with any new medical intervention, typically pregnant women are we are the most cautious with pregnant women because we need to assess the potential effect on the woman or on her developing baby. But evidence has been out for a while that there's no danger posed to either. And many countries have been vaccinating pregnant women for quite a while. So there's no, I think that the scientific data is quite clear. There is really no reason why a pregnant woman should not be vaccinated, especially because pregnant women are actually particularly susceptible to the more severe consequences of COVID.
Right.
So they're already a more susceptible group. And so now that the scientific data is clear that there is no danger posed, then they should be moved to the front of the line because they are a high-risk group for severe COVID complications.
And it's important you make that initial point that pregnant women are very susceptible when it comes to COVID and getting severe forms of COVID. And something else that scientifically we also know is that there is no proof, no evidence to the effect that maybe they will suffer any fertility issues. That has also been scientifically proven. So I guess the mandate then is to go and get vaccinated. Let me come to you, Dr. Adomako Boateng then. So now that you've got the green light as far as pregnant women are concerned as well, what is the plan in the Bono East region? How are you going to roll this out, targeting pregnant women? What's the plan?
So, we are going to engage them, social mobilization. We are going to intensify education, especially at our antenatal care centers, where we will engage them. And I think if we listen to Director General, the effect on COVID on pregnant women was severe. I mean, we realized initially we thought that it will have effect on the unborn baby and the mother. Well, we saw that the repercussions of them not receiving the vaccines were more severe than they receiving, and especially looking at the data around, we see that it doesn't actually have any effect on the baby. So we are going to engage the pregnant women. We are going to engage the traditional authorities and other opinion leaders for them to know the new policy and then also start administering. It's because of all these that the eligible population has actually increased, because initially you remember that they were not factored into the eligibility criteria, but now as they have been included, we have to use all the available methods that we have been using, especially the ANC, engaging them and then letting them know the benefits for receiving it. And we will start just from today going, and we make sure that our numbers will increase.
So do you have any idea what the numbers look like? I mean, do you have an idea from your health directorate? I'm sure you know, for example, if they've been coming for antenatal care and all of that, you know how many people, at least you have an idea how many people you're targeting in that bracket.
We are really looking at up to 20 to 30,000 pregnant women to be given the vaccine.
Mm. Let me come back to you, Dr. Yao-Bediako, and it has to do with the issue of boosters. I've discussed this with Dr. Sapong Esiedu, among others, and it's interesting because across the world, there are different pieces of research, and the European Union, they are talking about the fact that, yes, get boosters, maybe, so you've got your 2 shots, maybe a booster shot, maybe one final booster shot. But they are saying the more you take these boosters, the more you also affect your general immunity to different diseases. There are those like Dr. Sapone Siedu, research fellow with the CDD, who also says that no, it's not really a problem, because if you look at the flu, when you go to the UK, people have been practically taking it all their lives, every year. As a country, where do you feel we should strike the balance? Because it also has a cost component. What is your take on that, Dr. Bediako?
Well, first of all, I agree with Pramit that there is really, I don't really buy this idea that constant boosting has any real effect on your immune system. Our immune systems are always responding to challenge. That's what our immune systems do. When you walk outside, when a mosquito bites you, when you get a cold, those are all immune challenges. If our immune system got tired as a result of being exposed, we'd all have serious issues. So I really, from an immunological perspective, which is my particular area of expertise, I really don't see much. I don't give much weight to these concerns or these stories about exhausting your immune system as a result of constant immunization or boosting. But obviously, yes, there is a cost implication when it comes to the government procuring vaccines and continuing to vaccinate. Once again, the only way to get around that is to try to vaccinate as many people as quickly as possible, so that we can lower the incidence of the virus among our population sufficiently that it is less of a concern. If we continue to dribble out vaccines, if people continue not to necessarily show up to get vaccinated, if we remain below 60 or 70% vaccination, then the likelihood that we need to continue boosting it grows, because, as I said before, you require a booster because after about 6 to 7 months, your level of your titer of antibodies drops, and so you are more susceptible, you are more likely to get reinfected. But if enough people have been vaccinated, then there's enough protection, there's herd immunity, as everybody. Up until we control the spread of the virus, or there is sufficient immunity in the community, we may be faced with the prospect of requiring boosters from time to time. As he said, with flu, every year you get a flu shot because the flu virus changes. The WHO makes a recommendation, and in countries in sort of the northern hemisphere, they recommend flu shots every year. Now, whether COVID-19 becomes something like that, where the SARS-CoV-2 virus, every year they recommend people getting some sort of boost. Levels of infections drop sufficiently that we probably don't require boosters. We don't require boosters.
Dr. Boateng, I don't know, even before this announcement was made, had there ever been any discussions about booster shots in your region? And if so, how did people react, especially those who had already got 1 or 2 shots? How have people, if you've run it by them, reacted to getting extra shots moving forward, especially as we've been told that we could be dealing with COVID-19 for many years to come?
So I agree, but I think we are still in the learning mode, and I believe that even as the pandemic unfolds and maybe it becomes endemic and seasonal, the people who are going to get boosters are going to be different. And if we listen to Director General and the Minister's policy, we are looking at people who are at a higher risk of getting the COVID, and not really even when they have the COVID, the severity or the mortality, morbidity associated, but the other effects like security officers, health workers not coming to work, and therefore affecting a lot of productivity. So you look at it in context of what you want to achieve. And going forward, I think as we begin to look at the data, we will see those who are particularly affected, those who are not, and therefore those who would need the booster. So it's not going to be a general thing that everybody should be getting the booster. And I think as the pandemic also unfolds, we will see the presentation in this part of the world as compared to the others. And that one will inform us with the booster. And I can tell you that with the Omicron, what actually hit us most was the isolation period where people were, health staff affected, were supposed to be isolated for 14 days because they have it. And then when also those who were exposed, and then they were supposed to go into quarantine for at least the incubation period. And taking this into consideration, you see the effect on COVID on us. Therefore, the need for the booster for health workers. So going forward, we are going to still look at the impact of booster. But we have a challenge, especially when people are supposed to take the second dose. You see that we are lagging. We will still have to put in mechanisms to get people vaccinated. Our health staff, about more than 80%, got the first dose. But currently, as we are speaking, we have not been able to even achieve almost that number for the second dose and for to be fully vaccinated. So these are the challenges that we will have to look at. It has to become mandatory, especially those who are going to be in direct contact with patients, and therefore the likelihood of them exposing the patient to the risk, or they also being exposed to the disease. So we have to look at it and then segment them as we go forward. But then we have to look at our data critically so that we are fluid and we'll be able to make the changes as and when. Booster actually is needed for our health workers, especially those in direct contact with patients and then the other health security agencies. Thank you.
Dr. Bediako, going back to the issue of cost, so apart from singling out those who may necessarily need the boosters, of course, not everyone would need it unless there is some severe outbreak in the country. How do we scale back on cost? How do we not feed into the hands of what some have called big tech or the pharmaceutical giants? And it's interesting. I'm just looking here at a shot of one of these foreign papers, and it takes a look at how 3 new billionaires have been minted. I'm talking about Moderna, and how their co-founders, Robert Langer and Nubar Afian, together with an early investor, Timothy Springer, status. 3.5 billion for Robert Langer, 3.7 billion for Nubar, and 4.4 billion for Timothy Springer. As a country in the financial situation we find ourselves, how do we avert this? What are some of the smart processes we should be adopting?
Well, I mean, I think, first of all, it's also important that we don't buy into this. I also think it is, it's an anti-vax sort of myth that somehow there's some great conspiracy by big pharma. Yes, people have made money, but people make money in business all the time. I mean, that is the nature of business. These companies saw the opportunity, invested heavily in trying to create a vaccine, and I don't think we should begrudge them for making for making the return.
I'm not suggesting that we should begrudge them, but how can we ensure that whatever we are putting out there in terms of resources that we have very little of, it doesn't become some albatross around our neck, basically?
Well, and that is what I've been saying, that our approach has to be vaccinate as many people as quickly as we can, so that we hopefully require there's less need for boosting. From the very, very beginning of this pandemic, scientists like myself have been saying, the longer we take to vaccinate people, the more likely we are to still deal with this virus over a period of time, because the virus keeps mutating. And if we don't vaccinate quickly, over time, the vaccines that we have lose their efficacy and we need to do more. We have to find new vaccines, or we have to vaccinate again with what we have. So I think in terms of trying to avoid it becoming a financial burden, first of all, a large amount of the vaccines that we are using in this country are donated. The government has purchased some, but the vast majority of vaccines distributed in Ghana have been through the COVAX facility, for which Ghana has paid us. So for now, I don't really think that the vaccination drive in Ghana is costing Ghana a lot. I suspect the country spends a lot more money on many other things besides the COVID vaccination drive. So we should be thankful for that, at least, that majority of the vaccines that currently are in circulation have been donated by other countries or by the COVAX facility or by the African Union and other entities. So for now, I don't think the consideration should be how do we save money. We ultimately will help our economy and save money in the long run by getting everybody vaccinated so that the economic effects of COVID-19 are reduced. When the doctor was talking about people not showing up for work and the burden that places, once everybody is vaccinated and hopefully vaccinated enough to, like I said, drive down infection rates, then we will see greater productivity in our economy. So for now, billions of dollars that advanced countries have had, but that is also the reason why we are way behind. Certain countries have vaccinated 90% of their population, and we are looking around 15%. Partly because we've had to depend on the philanthropy and the goodwill of other countries. But that also means that at this point, it's not like we've spent a huge amount of money or continue to spend a huge amount of money because we're getting these vaccines for free. So I think we should keep that in mind. But of course, if we have the right vaccination strategy and people in Ghana cooperate with the Ghana Health Service and avail themselves for vaccination, my hope is that we will drive sufficient immunity that there will be less need for boosting. But if we continue to be slow about it and continue to be hesitant and listen to certain conspiracies that sort of affect our ability to show up to get vaccinated, then potentially we'll be dealing with this for a long time.
Right. Just a quick follow-up issue. So we now know that, and this is news that has been hitting us very recently, that South Africa is now going to be producing these vaccines. The entire process of creating these or making these COVID-19 vaccines from start to finish. How much of a boost is that for vaccine production on the continent and dealing with COVID-19? They have said that we've had the short end of the stick. We've been at the tail always when it comes to receiving vaccines. How much of a boost do you feel this is, Dr. Bediako, for the African continent in dealing with COVID-19?
Oh, it's a significant boost. It's not just for COVID-19, but for vaccine production in general. I mean, we use vaccines for many things. We did not just start vaccinating people with COVID-19. All of us around, whether we've had a COVID vaccine or not, have been vaccinated for something. So the idea that this pandemic has spurred the development of vaccine capacity on the continent is very positive. I believe there are discussions about local production even in Ghana. So I know that His Excellency the President has convened a committee to look into this. So hopefully to not just be South Africa that is producing vaccines, Ghana will get in on that as well. And I think these are important developments. We need to recognize that we need to be more self-sufficient. We need to invest in our health research infrastructure and invest in the long term in these areas, even though they may be long-term investments. You don't see the returns. When you invest in research and health, you don't see the returns overnight. But when something like COVID strikes, that's when you see the results. So a lot of us are hoping that this is not just in South Africa, but in many other countries like Ghana, we will step up. We will find ways to find the resources to invest in some of these capacities so that we are not completely at the mercy of overseas powers or other countries when situations like this arise. And certainly, hopefully, by manufacturing on the continent, the cost of vaccines and the availability of vaccines will improve.
Okay. Dr. Boateng, what are your expectations on the back of South Africa taking the lead when it comes to COVID-19 vaccine production on the continent? What are you looking forward to?
There are a lot of lessons that the country should learn from this pandemic, from PPEs to vaccines. You recall that at the beginning of the pandemic, we had challenges even with personal protective equipment. Not only Ghana, even the Western countries. Remember when China decided that they are no more going to export some of these PPE, and what happened? And you know, currently as we are speaking, China is not importing any vaccines. Russia is not importing any vaccine, Sputnik. So what do we do as a country? What lesson do we learn? Can we position ourselves in such a way that we can also produce and also export and make billionaires out of the country? These are things that I think we should be looking at. The lessons that we have learned in terms of PPE. Can we now produce N95? Can we produce surgical masks? Do we have capacity to produce gloves so that when it hits us hard, we will not be at the mercy of other countries?
In other words, Dr. Bediako, pardon the interjection. We've said so many things in the past, and we'll do this and we'll do that. We even spoke about setting up an immunization, through on the very things we've said we will be doing. Dr. Boateng, are you there?
Yeah,
right.
I'm here. So I can't. So these are the things that I think as a nation we should be discussing, because this is not going to be the end. So what have we learned? And not only that, we also learned that we needed more expertise in terms of emergency care. These are lessons that I think we have to plan in the long term how we are going to address it. So that if people are also going to make money out of this, what prevents us from also making money? I mean, it's knowledge and technology. What prevents us from coming together as a continent, as a sub-region, as academicians? I mean, these are things that I think we will have to be discussing. How are we using our data to inform decision in country so that we are not going to, you remember today, South Africa were complaining when they came out and they were able to discover Omicron and the response of the world. And when they even came and told the world that, look, Omicron is milder in terms of severity, and just that the transmissibility is so high. And I think the world did not take them serious, but they have been vindicated. So how do we position ourselves? These are questions that I have been asking myself, and we need to ask going forward. How do we address these issues?
Right.
We have to be thinking about these.
I'd like to wrap the conversation with you, hopefully on the subject of a vaccine mandate. It's interesting because I listened to the BBC yesterday, and in other countries, in Greece, in France, there are stiffer measures required. Some would require that you have PCR testing before you can even go for a cup of coffee at your local cafe. Before you can even see your cobbler, you are restricted to maybe the pharmacy and the supermarket, and that is it. In Greece, in some places, you would have to pay certain fines up to about 50 euros a month, just because you've not taken a vaccine. What do you think, Dr. Bediako, we should be doing in terms of enforcing our own version of a vaccine mandate? Should we go to such extremes as some people are going through in other parts of the world?
Well, I am personally in support of vaccine mandates, but I think you have to do them. You have to be sensitive to the fact of the availability of vaccines. So I think, and I think what Ghana has tried to do is to gradually phase in certain mandates as more and more vaccines have become available. You cannot punish people for not getting vaccinated when you don't have the vaccines available. But now that we have vaccines available, I think some level of measures are required. I mean, this is a serious, you have to step in and create certain choices. No one is forcing anyone to get vaccinated, but if you choose not to get vaccinated, then there are going to be certain consequences, because this is not about an individual's health, it is about the health of the nation, and for other, protecting other people who, like for instance, children who may not yet be getting vaccinated. So I think that we have to think about the mandates. Obviously, you have to put mandates in place that are going to be the most helpful. The point of a mandate is not to punish anyone; it is to try to encourage people to adhere to a guideline. So I think we have to think carefully about what kinds of mandates we enforce. But I think we do need some level of mandates. And the most important thing is, if you declare those mandates, then we have to enforce them. Sorry, could you say that again? There's no point having a mandate that is not enforced. So I think it has to be thought through. But once we decide what the mandates are, then they should be enforced to the letter of the law to demonstrate that the government is serious about this, and that will drive compliance and adherence.
If very briefly, in maybe some 15, 20 seconds, if you could propose one thing that if we wanted to go that...
A vaccine certificate, I think is a fair one. A number of countries have done that. that if you want to access government services, whether it's getting a driver's license or showing up at somewhere to pay your taxes, whatever it might be, where it's going to put you in contact with a large number of people, before you enter the facility, you should show your vaccination card. I think that is justifiable. I think that is something that has been proven to work elsewhere, and it's certainly something that Ghana probably should implement. Okay, so your final comments, Dr. Boateng, on the same beat, and it has to do with a vaccine mandate. And in Greece, for example, they will tell you that you're creating a health risk, which could lead to a health burden, which could be costs to the state. So you have to pay for it. What would you propose in that respect in terms of mandatory vaccination in Ghana? And those will be your final comments, Dr. Boateng.
Thank you. I think it's needful. I mean, if you look at our data, you remember at the beginning, the way our health workers suffered. So if for nothing, I think health workers will need vaccines. And I remember the security officers were also saying that they were also frontliners. So everybody who is going to kind of put somebody at risk, you actually need the vaccines. How do we go around it? And I think that's what Dr. Bediako has said. In Bunu, we have put in some mechanism like if you are not vaccinated, you can't go for conferences. And I think it's one of the most important activities that we are supposed to do to upgrade or to register your license. So we are finding innovative ways of making sure that people actually are vaccinated. Okay. And we also state that if you are coming to a hospital or a health facility, you have to show proof of vaccination. There are a lot of innovative ways that I think we can go. But let's look at our data and see those which are really needed. But one thing I would say is that if we cannot enforce any mandate or rule, please, let's look at it and then see how we can address it before we really give mandates. You remember the mask, a lot of people flouted it because we could not really enforce. So let's see ways that we can enforce, and then if we can graduate it from one step to another. That's also important. Thank you.
Well, gentlemen, it's always refreshing catching up with you and sharing thoughts. We're still dealing with COVID-19, but we're grateful that you've shared your thoughts with us. Dr. Bediako is an immunologist with WACBIP at the University of Ghana. Dr. Fred Adomako Boateng is the Bono East Director of Health. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. And this is where we draw the curtains on today's installment of the AM show. My name is Benjamin Akako. Thank you for joining. Let's do Friday tomorrow from 6 to 9 a.m. Have a good day.